One of the things that we wanted to start off with is just to talk about a couple of the themes that we have mentioned in our paper for people working with families where there is high conflict. And one of the things that we wanted to mention is the child triangulation, because that bit is a really important aspect of this work. Because many parents, when there is conflict, it's almost like a fight, if you like, for the child. So the child's kind of been pulled at two different kind of sides, and therefore they get triangulated in the parents' conflict. The child gets caught up in the adult's dispute. And then as a result of that, the child forms an alliance with one of the parents against the other parent, really, usually the parent that they live with against the other parent.
And this is on an unconscious level, this alliance. It's not that the child decides to, but it's more a survival mechanism. You know, if they've already lost one parent who's kind of gone off, they want to make sure they don't lose the parent they're living with. And I think in our work with Joanne, we've realized the damage this does to the children. I mean, I know there's lots of papers that have been written about it, but I think when you see these children on a daily basis and you see how hurtful it is to them and how caught up they are in their loyalties, I think that's what made us think, gosh, how can we help the parents get out of this? Because what's really interesting is that the parents are, the whole fight is focused around the child. But then the person who's forgotten the most is the child by the parents, because they're so caught up in their battle, they forget that as they're screaming on top of this child's head, the only person who's getting hurt is really the child. So that was like, you know, like they both care for the child, but they somehow forget that they care for the child and actually start damaging the child.
Yeah, when parents interact in this way, there's a real focus on blame, and there's very little thought about resolution or how to even resolve the issues. So therefore, one of the things that we do alongside the systemic kind of work that we do, we also introduce some psychoeducation to the parents as well. And we really kind of highlight, if you like, the concerns of the long-term effects that this child triangulation process can have on children's, you know, long-term psychological and mental well-being.
And I suppose one of the things that we've noticed in our work is that a lot of these parents kind of continue to fight the fight because they feel, as horrible as it is to them, they feel quite safe in what they know already. And they find it really difficult to let go. So letting go is one of the things that they find, each of the parents finds really difficult. And so they continue this fight all the time. And you can see even in the sessions, in the emails they're writing, it's all very conflictual. And so we thought, well, what could help these parents kind of let go of the fight? Because I suppose letting go would show some kind of vulnerability, wouldn't it? It would show that they don't want to show weakness. They want to show that the other's won. So they're constantly trying to win the battle. So I guess one of the things that we thought was helpful was to kind of help each of the parents feel very contained and safe with us, so that they can actually show the vulnerability and take the risk of saying, okay, you know what, I'm going to put my weapons down and I'm just going to try and see if we can talk peacefully with the help of these clinicians here. So I think that was one of the important things that we noticed that we were able to do with not all of the parents, but with a lot of the parents, and we're able to do that.
Because of the level of conflict, to actually bring them together straight away just wouldn't work, because they're so caught in this, you know, pattern of just fight. So what we do is we see them individually, and that might be one or two kind of individual sessions that we will have with each of the parents. They need an opportunity, if you like, to just kind of let it all out and let it all go. In sometimes what they do as well, they try to kind of recruit us into their side of the story. But one of the things that we find that's really, really helpful is that when we just listen and when we sit, especially for the first session, we're just listening and really validate their experiences, because the journey that they've had, sometimes Some of them have been in court 6-7 years, just fighting for, you know, custody of their child. And that in itself can be a really, you know, draining experience for them. I mean, it's very basic, but actually it's very profound, and it's very powerful in really getting the parents to kind of become in a state where they can kind of now listen, because they're kind of getting it all out. They're in a place where they can kind of listen to us.
And I suppose alongside listening and validating, what we do is we kind of drop in little hints of, oh yes, your ex said that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he agrees with you there. Oh yeah, your ex-wife said the same about your child. Isn't that interesting? And we kind of look at each other like, you know, so we're already linking the two narratives in a positive way. And it really is little droplets that we do. We don't go into it very deeply. You know, often they look a bit surprised, and then we just let it go, and then we drop in another one and say, oh yeah, you know, he said the same thing about your daughter. Actually, it's interesting because it seems like you both worry about the same things.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like, and you know, and then we just let it go again. So that kind of work has already started as well. And then what we do is we, you know, when they feel safe by then, we kind of bring them to sessions.
Yeah.
And even in the joint sessions, we see them each separately for about 15 minutes so that they again can feel safe and contained. And we have like specific rules, like normal, I suppose, sessions that you have with parents.
Because there's a level of confusion and misunderstanding that gets played out between the parents. So one of the things that we really do is we're reframing some of their narratives and helping them to really understand meaning, because in order to continue the fight, their capacity to kind of really hear a different side to the story, if you like, is almost really limited. But by the reframing and by the really helping to kind of deconstruct meaning of what each other are saying, again has a really powerful and profound effect. And we do this by just, rather than getting them to kind of respond directly and immediately, we kind of help them to just pause a little and just, you know, taking what we've just said. This is what we're hearing your ex-partner say. Let's just let that resonate for a bit, and then we allow them to respond. Because if they're just responding immediately, they're not really taking it in. So you have to slow them down, because again, all they want to do is fight. So they're going at such a speed that in order to stop them, pause them, slow down, think about what we've just said. How do you now understand that? Really important.
And I suppose a lot of the times we then have kind of conversations with each other, Joanne and I, where we say, isn't it interesting that you and I heard this from what the dad said, and yet the mum heard something very different? That's really interesting. I wonder where that comes from. So we have those conversations, and then we look at the mother and we say, what was it that triggered you there? What did you hear that really got you really upset? Because we could see you got really angry and upset there. What was it? What was the trigger? And if we feel that it might be a bit too personal, a bit too sensitive, we might ask to see the person on their own and just kind of look at that trigger and find out if we think it's something that might be helpful, and that the person is able to talk about in front of the ex-partner. That's even better if they can talk about that. That's really putting their vulnerabilities out there, so that and actually it often has a really positive effect, because the other person kind of goes, oh, okay, I realize now, you know, and they see a different side to each other. So it's all this kind of like, you know, communication, meta communication going on. And another thing we do is again, when they agree on, even if it's the slightest thing, that they both, for instance, that the child has nightmares, we go, oh, isn't that interesting? You both noticed that. So again, it's emphasizing and highlighting where they can both parent together, you know, and again, putting the child right in the middle in a good way, not in a bad way. This is where the parents are thinking about what's good for the child, what they both see the child is suffering from, where they agree that things should be different.
Yeah. What Shadi was talking about earlier about thinking about their triggers is a way of also managing the arousal, because when their partners say something, remember, meaning has gotten constructed between the two of them, away from us. So we're not hypersensitive, if you like, to maybe particular words or particular phrases that might be used. So when we are in the room and we're noticing that the person is becoming, or the parent is becoming aroused, we might kind of attend to that. We do that also by recognizing sometimes some of the emotional impact they are experiencing, because through the anger, through the blame, through the insults, underneath there's a very frightened parent who's frightened of losing contact with their child. So when we attend to those hidden emotions as well, that can really turn a corner when we do that. But really highlighting those hidden emotions, again, can be a really powerful tool.
So there are different signs that we look out for. And I suppose one of the signs is how the parent the child is living with actually encourages the child to be closer to the parent they're not living with, and how much they support that relationship. And if you can see the parent the child's living with really supporting that relationship and saying, go on, go and see your father. I think it's really good to spend more time with him. I think it's, and they genuinely mean it. And the child no longer needs to be caught up in their loyalties. That's a huge step forward. And we have seen it quite a lot in our work, actually, where, you know, parents have not been able to be in the same room, and all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but through our work together, you know, they do begin to talk about the child, they do begin to put the child's needs first, and they both realize, gosh, we both love this child as much as each other, actually, and the child needs us both. And that psychoeducation that Joanne was talking about, I think, plays a huge role as well, where they realize they don't want to harm the child anymore. So that is probably the biggest kind of cursor to look at, is how much the resident parent is actually encouraging the child's relationship with the non-resident parent.
And then what the impact of that is that the child who's saying, I hate my dad, or I hate my mom, and I don't want to go, I don't want to go. Or they're having, you know, nightmares the night before, or tummy upsets, or feeling sick on the day that they're supposed to go, no longer have those symptoms. And there is a whole kind of physiological kind of transition that the child goes through, where they actually are able to manage those handovers and go and have a good time with the non-resident parent. It's really transformative. It's really transformative.